Welcome to the Planet Pearl video tutorial for the knit stitch Continental style. Our supplies, yarn, and straight needles. So to get started, I just cast on however many number of stitches, and we're going to learn how to knit in the Continental style. Now, American style, you hold the yarn and manipulate it with your left hand or your right hand. But what we're going to do for the Continental is we're going to hold the yarn in our left hand. This is actually a much faster way. So you want to loop it from the back to the front of your index finger. And then you can tension the yarn. There's many ways to tension the yarn as there are knitters. I personally hold it up against the needle, but you're going to find something that works for you. And some people will knit this against their index finger and some against their middle finger. You're just going to have to play with it and figure out what feels most comfortable. So this is typically, depending on how tired my fingers are, where I hold the yarn. So what you're going to do is go from the front to the back, just like you do in American style knitting. And you're going to grab the loop of yarn that's over the fingers of your left hand. The first stitch is always the toughest because you're kind of yanking it to the back at the same time. So we're going to go through the stitch and we're going to grab the loop of yarn that's over our index or middle finger. And we're just going to pull the stitch off. And we're going to continue to go through to pick up the loop. Again, we're going to go through, we're picking up that loop of yarn that's being held over our finger, pulling the needle through and pushing the stitch off. And what you can't really see here is how that yarn is being tensioned as you pull that stitch off. It's you're basically putting a little tension on it by the tugging action in order to tension the stitch. You know, you have to be careful not to tug too hard or you're never going to be able to move those stitches on the needle. So keep that yarn looped over your finger, and you can see why this style is frequently called picking as opposed to throwing. So do you see I'm giving it just kind of a little bit of a tug as I'm pulling it off and readjusting my yarn, pulling a little bit of yarn through for the next stitch. So you see it becomes kind of a natural action after you practice it for a while. So through the stitch, pick and pull the stitch through. Pick and pull the stitch through. So here you see we're creating the knit stitches, and so much faster than in American style knitting or English style knitting. So we're just going to continue just picking and pulling the yarn through and creating our row of knitting. Well, I hope you're more excited than Montana about this. Come visit us soon at planetpearl.com.